All right. Hey, everybody. Here we go. This is day 2 of 90 days on living a life well spent. All right. And so yesterday we talked about the 2 versions of yourself that live between your ears, the mediocre version and your greatest self. And which one do you listen to predominantly is kind of how your life turns out, right? And so you can take a look at the results in your life and take a look at the evidence about which one you're listening to predominantly and figure out where you might need to change things. For me, I can tell you emphatically that most of my life I've listened to the average self, the mediocre self, the one that's telling me to take the easy road, to look for the easy way out and to quit when things get tough. And so with this newfound perspective on the average mediocre self and the greatest version of myself, I've decided that I'm going to listen to the latter instead of the former. And the question is what is your life going to look like? What is my life going to look like after 90 days of making that commitment? Well, I'm excited to move forward looking at 90 days down the road. I will. 90 days down the road, I'm going to be looking back at, September, and I'm going to be realizing that I spent my time well because I've been listening to the greatest version of myself instead of the mediocre average self, right? And so the whole thing to consider in terms of what this particular recording is about is that this is a process, and I am here to make progress in the process. And so what that means is that I can't get caught up in perfection, which has been my MO for a lot of things about why I just don't do them, is I'm waiting for the right opportunity. I'm waiting for the conditions to be right. I'm waiting for the resources to show up. I'm waiting for time. I'm waiting for money. I'm waiting for people. I'm waiting for all of these things that are never going to happen, and I just need to get going, right? And so it's not about perfection and waiting for perfect conditions. It's about just doing it, right? And making those decisions and making incremental progress towards whatever it is that I'm after. And so, again, it might be easy to think about this idea that we need to have perfect conditions, perfect opportunities, things need to line up, all the stars and moons need to line up so that you have the perfect gravitational force that's going to pull you through this and make it nice and easy and lickety-split. But those conditions are a fantasy. And so as we look at this, the thing to keep in mind is that we don't generally live into being the greatest version of ourselves. And it's because we accept and we tolerate a lesser version of ourselves, a lesser achievement, a lesser goal. And it's a lesser version of our greatness that we tolerate, right? As human beings, we're the only creature on the face of the earth that accepts less than it's capable of, right? Every other animal, every other living entity, whether it's a tree or the cheetah, right? The cheetah runs as fast as it can. It doesn't run half-heartedly because it realizes it's winning. It goes as fast as it can. A tree will grow as tall as it can. But people, me, have accepted less than we're capable of, and that's because we listen to the mediocre average version of ourselves instead of the greatest version of ourselves, right? And what it's boiled down to is it's becoming a habit. It's become a habit for us. It's become a habit for me that I'm dedicated to breaking and deciding what it means to be great and do great things. Is I've decided to listen to the greatest version of myself instead of the average mediocre version of myself. See, the habits that we have are formed by discipline or lack of discipline. There's a saying that says that habit rules the unreflecting herd. Well, that's the same thing that can be said about the super achievers and the super successful people in life. They turn it around a little bit in that the people that are average and mediocre allow habits to rule them, but the super successful and super achievers in life rule their habits. And they do so by listening to the greatest version of themselves in the moments of decision that they have to make. So the whole idea about how to achieve this is that you have to raise your standards, right? You have to raise the standard on what you're willing to accept. Raise the standard on what you will not accept, right? No longer accept mediocrity and average. Don't listen to that version of yourself anymore. Listen to the version that says, what you're going to do is going to be a great effort, a great achievement, even though it's going to be difficult, even though it's going to be hard, even though you're going to run into obstacles. You know, you're going to do these things anyway, and time is going to pass, but you're going to decide to do the best you can, be the best version of yourself in the process, right? Okay, and so another saying is that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Well, a journey to greatness begins with a single decision. And in the process of progress, that decision is the next decision, right? And when you reach that decision and you make a decision there, then the next decision is the one that's going to be your journey to greatness. So the journey to greatness and awesomeness begins with a single choice, and that's the next choice. Okay, and so Darren Hardy describes this in the compound effect, and basically what it is if you think of the idea of compound interest, about how it starts slow and then eventually it takes off, and you can't control the growth. Well, that's the effect that this has as you make one decision after the next, after the next. You build this habit of who you're listening to, average, mediocre self, or the greatest version of yourself. All right. Every time you make a choice that's in alignment with the greatest version of yourself, then you are being the greatest version of yourself, and you are living into your own greatness and your potential. You're stretching yourself to achieve your capacity. And the key to this is consistency in listening to the right version of yourself, right? You have to be consistent, and that's where you look at the results of your life and you figure out which one you've been consistently listening to. You know, the other thing that is critical here is to have an attitude that you're going to persist and you're going to keep on no matter what, right? When obstacles show up, when failures happen, when you do something that's a mistake, when you embarrass yourself and you realize that, you know, you made the wrong choice, or you listened to the wrong version, or maybe you just flat out didn't know what to do and you did the best you can and it just fell short, right? Then the key is to having an attitude of persistence, that you're going to get back up, right? Don't worry about how many times you fall down. Just worry about how many times you're going to get back up. And the whole thing is captured in this idea. If you get stuck in this attitude or this perspective that you need to make the perfect choice every time, that's not where everything lies. That is a recipe for procrastination and deferring, which is what your average mediocre self wants you to do, is wait for those perfect conditions. But the whole thing is captured in this idea that done is better than perfect, right? So take that next step, make that decision. You may not have all the information. You probably won't have all the information, but make that decision anyway with the best information you have, and make it the best decision you can, listening to the greatest version of yourself. And then when you do that, it's going to drop you off on a doorstep somewhere, and then the next time you get up and get going in the morning, that's where you begin your journey, right? And so this 90-day journey of living a life well spent starts one day at a time, and we can't do day 80 or 85 or day 90 right now, even though that's where we'd like to be. We have to do day 2 right now, and then tomorrow will be day 3. And so every day is a new step in that journey. All right, so that's it. 90 days on living a life well spent. So I hope that you have a fantastic day. And hey, put your game face on, because the game is on. See ya.